Uh, well, good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning.
I wanted to just say hello. Why don't you sit over there?
Yes.
Or you could use this to sit up.
It's like, cannot see your face. Oh, there we go.
Oh.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Hi.
Well, Neelam is here.
Hi.
Do you know Neelam, Dr. Shaw?
No.
No, you don't. Where are you from, Neelam?
I'm from Las Vegas.
From India?
No, Las Vegas.
From Las Vegas. Okay.
Yes.
I haven't been there for a long time.
Oh, you
Uh,
should come.
You must enjoy it very much.
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, welcome,
Thank you.
Dr. Stein over there.
Nice to meet you.
And I thought I would just say a few words about introduction. And this is a neuroscience program, and we're dealing mostly with the brain, spinal cord, muscle, and the extremities, central and other. And I wanted to kind of emphasize that there are only certain types of neurological aspects. There's the central nervous system, there's the peripheral nervous system, and then there's the autonomic nervous system. So there's only three parts. And in neurology, we are very concerned with localization as opposed to other diseases. But you can imagine if you have to understand neuroanatomy, neurophysiology, neurochemistry, but by far the most important aspect is to localize neurologic disease to either the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, or autonomic nervous system. So in neurology, we spend a lot of time on history. You will see that I spend 85% of my time on the history. Every now and then, there's some interesting patients who come in where the physical exam is more important also. But most of the time, it's listening to the patient and trying to understand and localize where the problem is for the patient. The one concept that I think is very important is to find out why the patient is here. I call it the ticket of admission, the ticket of admission to the neurological practice, because it's not always evident. Sometimes the patient puts down something on their sheet, but they're really here for another reason. And sometimes you don't know, you don't recognize it until the second visit or third sometimes. Sometimes you never get it at all. But I spend a lot of energy and time on trying to understand why the patient is there. Remember that neurology and psychiatry are really the same. It's looking at the person from one side or from the other side, but they're basically the same. You have to know psychiatry in order to understand neurology, and you have to know neurology in order to be a good psychiatrist, because otherwise you're kind of spending a lot of time and energy on the wrong thing. I remember neurologic diseases have psychological manifestations as well, so it's very, very important. Some basic concepts in neurology in this rotation, you'll be here for 1 month, is to understand the localization. So the first thing I try to do is to localize where the illness is, where is it coming from, where is it situated. So I spend a lot of time in my mind considering localization. Number two, we spend a lot of time on taking the history from the patient. As a general rule, if I don't have a differential diagnosis by the time I'm finished taking the history, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not asking the right questions. I always take responsibility myself rather than the patient. That if I didn't ask the right questions, it's not the patient's fault that they were unable to give me the symptoms, but I didn't ask the right questions. So I frequently will go back and re-ask in another way. I think it's very important for young neurologists to recognize how important in neurology the history is. And I think neurology will always be here because of that factor. Even though we have many diagnostic studies, in a way they have replaced the exam, the physical exam. But still, if you don't ask the right history, you don't get the right history, and the patient is not able to explain it to you, then you will be behind the eight ball, and you will not really understand what the condition is. And that happens a lot in neurology. I think that's the biggest error that I see young neurologists, is that they don't spend enough time on the history because we have so many patients waiting. There's always this kind of stress to move on, to get on and see more patients and so forth. In neurology, we used to see maybe 10 patients a day, spend a lot of time on the history exam. Now we have to see double that. So we're actually seeing 20, 25 patients a day, which I think is probably too many. But in the history, to me, is the fun part. It's the critical part. And I want to emphasize that. And when does the history begin? When does the history begin in your mind?
When the patient enters.
Exactly. It's actually, my history begins as soon as I see the patient in the waiting room, how they interact with the staff, how they fill out their forms, how they sit, are they reading, do they bring a book? So observation is critical. In the history, we always ask about the age, the handedness. Why do you think we ask about the handedness? We're the only ones in medicine who ask, are you right-handed or left-handed?
Because a particular part of the body can be affected in some neurological disease.
It helps us localize the handedness, in a general sense, helps us localize the disease, the illness. Now, I'm going to tell you something interesting. Patients who are right-handed, they're very easy. They always say, I'm right-handed. Patients who are left-handed always seem to have a little story. They have a story. Like they'll say, I'm ambidextrous, or I'm left-handed, but I use my right hand. And I don't understand why that is so. It's always they want to explain it to me and make an excuse. Interesting. We ask about occupation, is very important, where they reside. I like to ask how they came to see me. Marital status, military.
You have a patient waiting.
Okay, we got patient waiting for me. All right, family history, general medical history, surgical history, hospitalizations. I ask about trauma, whether they had head injuries, neck injuries, back injuries in the past. Ask about their children. Ask about menstrual periods, email. Workers' compensation, is it workman's compensation? Find out if it's medical legal. Patients won't tell you. They don't tell you right away. Let's say they had an injury, they slipped and fell. It may be the second or third time, oh, by the way, I have an attorney. So I usually anticipate that. I say, well, do you have an attorney? I ask about that. And then to see if it's forensic or other, ask about medications. And then we add the review of systems, usually 25 bullets I call them bullets, 25 bullets review systems. Diabetes, cardiac, pulmonary, GI, GU, hypertension. Some of this history may be obtained on follow-up the next time you see the patient. And I ask about it in a female, I ask about pregnancies, and in children, frequently gestational period, delivery, how was delivery, and then the achievement, the children going to school and graduating. Look at story of present illness, very important. You kind of do that throughout the visit. Medications, drug-induced, loss of interest, loss of energy, loss of drive, memory problems, disorders of memory, thinking, headache. We see a lot of patients with headache, loss of consciousness. And then when there's been kind of I guess a change in sensorium, there are 4 Ds, the 4 Ds that I ask about. Would you know which ones? The Ds.
Delirium
Yeah, delirium is 1, very good.
and drugs.
Drugs is 2. Think about,
Depression and dementia.
yes, go ahead,
Depression and dementia.
depression. So those are the Ds. So we kind of focus on those Ds. And then I remember that you always have another chance because you ask the patient to come back, you have another chance to get more history. Okay, so I wanted to kind of focus a little bit on the history. My goal in the next month is not to teach you facts, a lot of facts about illnesses, diseases, and so forth, because you can look that up in Google and so forth. But I want to teach you about approach, the approach to the neurological exam, approach to history taking, an approach to the patient. That's really what I want to get across in 1 month. Remember, it takes years to learn neurology, and I don't expect you to know all of neurology in 1 month, but at least I will teach you, and Dr. Stein will teach you an approach. This is our approach. There are many other approaches. There are many doctors in the world, many teachers, and they may have a different approach to patients and to their illnesses, neurologic illnesses, and so forth. Any questions?
No.
I have to go and see patients waiting. Any questions about the history, the general history?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, and then Dr. Stein will follow up now. I'm going to go and see the patient.
Okay.
All right, I'll catch up later, okay?
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right.